April 24th, 1981. A quiet road near Troy, Ohio, where the only sounds are the wind rustling through the trees. But beneath the stillness, a young woman lies in a ditch, a body forgotten by time. Her identity unknown, her death a mystery. She is known only as Buckskin Girl, a name that would haunt investigators for decades. But 37 years later, the truth will emerge, not through the hands of traditional detectives, but through the power of modern science. Genetic genealogy. Who was the girl in the buckskin poncho, and what tragic events led to her death?
It was a cool spring morning in 1981 when a log was spotted blocking the road. A couple, looking for a peaceful spot in the woods, stopped to remove it. But as they stepped out of their car, their eyes caught something far worse than a fallen tree. A body lay just beyond, limp, lifeless, and alone. The woman was dressed in a distinctive fringed buckskin poncho, the only clue to her identity. Her body had been left in a state of violent disarray, showing signs of a brutal attack, a head wound, strangulation, and signs of sexual assault. For days, investigators in Ohio struggled to identify the young woman. Theories swirled. Was she a hitchhiker? A runaway? Someone passing through? But with no identification and no leads, the case stalled. Detectives spent days canvassing the area, checking local missing persons reports, and hoping for a break. The absence of evidence, combined with the victim's lack of ID, left law enforcement in the dark. However, the one thing that stood out was her buckskin poncho, an unusual and distinctive piece of clothing that would eventually play a pivotal role in solving the case. But for now, the Buckskin Girl remained a nameless victim, and her killer remained elusive.
As the investigation continued, detectives struggled with few concrete leads. They found no fingerprints on the victim's body, and the DNA analysis at the time yielded no usable information. Theories about the killer's identity remained just that, theories. The victim's body had been discarded so casually, as if to erase her existence entirely. The name Buckskin Girl was given to her because of the distinctive clothing she wore. But as the weeks turned into months, and then years, the case grew cold. Investigators exhausted every lead, scoured missing persons reports across the country, and even consulted psychics. Nothing worked. Her name remained a mystery, and the case seemed destined to remain unsolved. Though there were periodic attempts to reopen the case, the investigation remained stagnant. Her killer had left behind very few clues, and her family, if she had one, remained unaware of her fate. With time, the case became just another cold file gathering dust in the back of the detective's office. The community, once shaken, slowly returned to its usual routines. But the mystery of Buckskin Girl haunted everyone involved in the case, and the absence of closure left a dark shadow over the town. Would anyone ever know her name?
Years passed, and the case was nearly forgotten when a new breakthrough came in the form of modern forensic technology. In 2018, the DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to identifying Jane and John Does, took on Buckskin Girl's case. They used genetic genealogy, a powerful new tool that had already helped solve numerous cold cases. Forensic genealogists began uploading DNA from the crime scene to genealogical databases. The aim was to find distant relatives, people whose DNA might match. The hope was that by identifying a family member, they could uncover the victim's identity. It wasn't long before they found a promising lead, a match to a distant relative of the victim. The breakthrough gave investigators the first glimmer of hope after decades of silence. Forensic genealogist C.C. Moore spent countless hours tracing the family tree, tracking down relatives who had no idea they were connected to the case. The process was long and painstaking, but in the end, it paid off. The victim's name was revealed to be Marcia Lenore Sossamon King. The young woman found in the woods was not a nameless victim after all. She had a name, a family, and a life that was tragically cut short. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation team and her surviving family members. The search for the killer was about to become more intense. Now that the victim's identity had been confirmed, the investigation shifted from trying to uncover who she was to uncovering what had led to her tragic end. Marcia was a young woman from Little Rock, Arkansas, who had been living a free-spirited life, traveling and finding herself. Her family recalled Marcia as an adventurous soul. She had always been independent, and while they had lost touch with her in the years before her death, they had never stopped hoping she would come back. Her relatives struggled to piece together how she had ended up in Ohio, a young woman from another state found in the middle of the woods, her life stolen away by someone who seemed to know exactly where she had been. The investigation into Marcia's life revealed that she had been associated with a religious group at the time of her death, which raised suspicions about the circumstances of her disappearance. Had she been targeted? Or was her murder an act of random violence? There was no shortage of questions, but investigators had no clear answers. With each new detail, the complexity of the case grew.
With Marcia's life under a microscope, the next step was finding the killer. Her family's questions grew more pressing. Who would do this to her? Was she a random victim? The investigation turned to possible suspects, but there were few leads. The only clue the police had was that Marcia's murder seemed to be sexually motivated. She had been sexually assaulted before being killed. As detectives dug deeper, they began to suspect that Marcia's killer might have been someone she knew. The theory emerged that she had been abducted while on her way to or from somewhere, and then disposed of in a place where her body wouldn't be found easily. The evidence pointed to the possibility of a man with an obsession for young women. But who was he, and why did he target Marcia? As time went on, other unsolved cases began to emerge in the area, some with similarities to Marcia's. Could these be connected? Was there a serial killer in the area? Law enforcement continued to follow leads, but they were continually blocked by dead ends. Marcia's murder remained unsolved, and the killer continued to walk free. The case of Marcia Buckskin Girl Sossamon King remained unsolved for nearly 40 years. But in 2018, the world of forensic science would deliver the breakthrough that finally brought justice. Using genetic genealogy, investigators identified her killer as 59-year-old John Miller, a man with a history of criminal behavior. The DNA from the crime scene was linked to Miller, who had been living under the radar for decades. Miller, once a suspect in the case, was finally arrested. But the discovery of his identity came too late for Marcia's family. By the time they learned the truth, Miller had already died of natural causes, making him unavailable for trial. However, his name was finally cleared from the list of suspects, and the victim's name was given back to her family. For Marcia's loved ones, the long-awaited justice came with mixed emotions. After so many years, they could finally say her name without the shadow of mystery hanging over it. But the fact that her killer never faced trial left a bittersweet feeling. Justice had been served, but the pain of her untimely death lingered. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true crime cases solved by modern forensic science. If you want to see more stories where justice is served, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.